Magnus Carlsen, the acclaimed Norwegian chess prodigy and 5-time world chess champion, is renowned for his outstanding speed, ingenious endgame tactics, and adept moves on the chessboard. Widely hailed as the endgame god in the chess realm, Carlsen's strategic prowess is very well established. However, a noteworthy development occurred during the FIDE World Cup 2023 when he encountered Iranian chess grandmaster Parham Maghsoodloo. Parham, a 3-time Iranian national champion and the 2018 World Junior Chess Champion, boasts a formidable peak rating of 2742, solidifying his status as a force to be reckoned with in the world of chess. White starts by moving his pawn to d4, and Magnus replies with his knight to f6. Parham goes for the queen's gambit by playing c4. The game proceeds with a couple of developing moves being played. Here, Magnus decides to castle his king to safety, and Parham continues with a pawn move. Magnus counters this by sliding his pawn to c5, posing a threat to White's d-pawn. We see a pawn exchange on c5 and Magnus captures back with his bishop. A few moves are played before Parham slides his queen to c2, with an idea to place his bishop to d3. Magnus slides his rook to a more active square, and White mimics this move by sliding his rook to d1. Magnus goes on by attacking the bishop with a pawn, forcing White to move it. Parham chooses to move his bishop to g5, leading to a pin on Black's knight. Magnus again strikes the center with a pawn move, but instead of capturing this pawn, Parham decides to hop in with this knight to d5, putting some extra pressure on the Black knight sitting on f6. Magnus must defend this, so he retreats his bishop back to e7. Parham immediately goes for the exchange and captures the knight with his bishop, forcing Magnus to capture back. White then develops his light-squared bishop, and Magnus replies with a defensive pawn move. After thinking for a couple of seconds, Parham decides to trade his knight for the bishop. However, this move was not great. The white knight placed on the center of the board was formidable, so trading this knight away was not a good idea. This exchange allows Magnus to place his queen on f6, mounting some extra pressure on the white knight. Parham defends it with his bishop, and Magnus immediately throws an offer for the bishop exchange. While Parham should castle here, he instead accepts the bishop exchange, allowing him to capture the pawn on d4. Magnus jumps in with his knight, again offering a knight trade. Trading pieces and proceeding for the endgame against Magnus Carlsen itself is a defeat, because Magnus is known for his superior endgame tactics. Knowing that, Parham refused to trade this time and simply slid his queen to c3. But wait, this was a blunder! Parham should have accepted this trade, because now Magnus brings his rook into the action, leading to a strong knight on d4. Parham moves his rook to d2 and Magnus slides his queen to g6, launching an attack on the g2 pawn. Parham again neglects the idea of castling and slides his king to f1, defending the pawn. After a couple of piece shuffles, we see a pawn exchange on c4, which eventually favors Magnus. Magnus got the chance to move his rook to c4, attacking the white queen and forcing it to move. Parham decides to move his queen to h3, and Magnus immediately replies by moving his queen to e6, offering a queen trade. Parham reluctantly accepts this trade by sliding his king to defend the queen, inviting Magnus to take with his queen. After a few more moves unfold, Magnus slides his pawn to e2, attacking the rook and forcing it to relocate. Parham moves it to b1 square. A few moves later, Parham moves his knight to b4, attacking the rook, but Magnus ignores this threat and replies by capturing the free pawn with this knight. Parham captures the rook, and Magnus mirrors this move by capturing back White's rook with his knight. This move forces Parham to take the knight with the rook, allowing Magnus to push his pawn to e1, promoting it to a brand new queen. But this one is not long lasting, as Parham instantly captures this queen with his rook, allowing Magnus to capture back. Now the position completely favors Magnus Carlsen, as Magnus has 2 pawns and a rook, as compared to Parham having 3 pawns and a knight. From here, Magnus is a clear winner, and he is considered one of the greatest endgame players. Still, Parham decides to continue the game. After a couple of moves and checks from both sides, many moves into the game, Parham attempts to secure a draw by invoking the 50-move rule. He summons the Arbiter, explaining that according to the rule in chess, a player can claim a draw if no captures have occurred and no pawns have been moved in the last 50 moves. However, upon closer examination, it's revealed that only 46 moves transpired, and Magnus ultimately emerges victorious and remains our world champion.